What's good? What's good? Welcome back to Bryce Reacts. We back with another one. Today we calling out Jay-Z again because I think we found another body in the backyard, essentially. Jay-Z has many people that you could say he's crossed or did wrong. Most of this seemed like it was business, but in this case, it's going to be more about the musical aspects and how I think Jay-Z was intimidated by the future that was in front of him and how he tried to stifle a whole subgenre and branch of hip hop that end up running and taking over hip hop still to this day. So, with that being said, man, we have a very interesting conversation ahead of us. So, let's get right into it.
I don't know why telling the truth has to come off as hate. Like, I feel like Jay-Z shows a pattern that he doesn't like when people are about to pass him in relevance in hip hop. Well,
which is, I think, just in that sense, there's nothing wrong with that because we talked about many artists that probably has displayed that. But I think when you talk about like artists like Nicki Minaj and how she tried to do that to certain female artists, when it comes to Jay-Z, I think it's almost tenfold with the amount of bodies that he's had that you can look at. It's like, honestly, trying to hold them and self gain and it's going to benefit him in a sense.
It's always been like this, guys. Wayne's doing felt like it's a strategic move because it's over. Press tour right before Drake releases the album. I felt like it's a strategic move because it's always been like this, guys. Wayne's doing what no one thought was possible in hip hop. Jay-Z comes out of retirement. Wayne smokes him on Show Me What You Got, and all of a sudden, this beef ignites. T-Pain steps into the ring, is doing things no one thought was possible. Is he hip-hop? Is he R&B? Nobody really knows. Jay-Z inserts himself into the conversation again. Hey, we're done with that auto-tune. We're moving it back. But this album is where Jay-Z found out that he didn't have the ability to have both commercial success and his core fan base behind him. Now, with the Blueprint 3, I didn't say it was a bad album. I just said it wasn't critically acclaimed. It sold records. It had the big ones like Empire State of Mind, but people felt like other artists carried it and Jay-Z was chasing a younger sound. And so I believe Jay-Z was trying to Taylor Rook it. He was trying to look like an oracle of sorts by saying, hey, man, we got to move on from the beef. It's bad for business. He was trying to say, hey, once you reach a certain age, it becomes inauthentic to chase the young sound. It's not hate. I think literally he was setting up the play so that when Drake didn't do as well or when the critics hated on him, when his core fan base said, you need to go back to Take Care, he would look like a genius.
And this goes to the conversation where we can't act like Jay-Z's naive when y'all say he's just chess player. He's so like ahead of the game. He's always out thinking people. He's so business minded. He's so savvy. And then all of a sudden give him that same like, oh no, he's naive. He just did this 3 months before Iceman for no reason. He just wanted to, get out there. It's like, no, bro. He was getting out ahead of things just because I think he heard different things around the industry that Drake was going to be dissing him, that there's a potentiality that he get called out in a way that would be uncomfortable. So let's get ahead of it and try to kill it and nip it in his bud or let's at least plant seeds. So when it do happen, I'm not looked at a certain type of way if it is however it may go. And I think this speaks to the same thing he was referencing to with when he retired and came out and was struggling to try to, regain success and was chasing a younger sound. I think that's why you get records like Death for the Auto-Tune. And it's like he masks that I'm trying to protect the culture. I'm trying to help the culture stay preserved. But in reality, it was a hate campaign for him to stay relevant. And when you really boil everything down, that's all it is. So we give Jay-Z this grace for being the cool guy and always trying to be a curator of what hip hop should be and things like that. But at the same time, hip hop never embraced haters. And we can really get into this narrative where that's what it starts to seem that that's all he was when it came to that. So when you get to retirement, he retired in 2003 after coming around in 96. So it's like you dropped maybe 6, 7 albums in that time frame because he was almost dropping an album a year, maybe 5. So that's a good amount of projects. It's not like no one's gonna shit on that work ethic. But at the same time, when you do start to retire, it feels like there's a lack of fire there, whether it might have been because you want to go into the business side of things or you was losing your touch with just being as connected. There's something that was going on riding around in his head while he wanted to retire. Will we ever get the real answer? No. but it's something that was involving he not having the same passion that other artists was at that time. So he stepped down. That's what, like, to a certain degree, that has to be the conversation. So when you get 06, you start to say, like, what's going on in 06? Who was popping in 06? That's where right around the time that T-Pain came into existence. 2005, 2000 to 2007, you get some of his top records. I'm Sprung, in love with a stripper, buy you a drink. And even though that T-Pain wasn't completely hip hop, the element that took or he brought to the game helped so many younger artists or newer artists or evolving artists where they could now be more melodic than ever because they got a new like way of singing that's not just relying on their raw vocals. They got a new way of creating hooks and having a way of engaging in with the artists, I mean with the fans, in a way that we wasn't engaging with. And I think Jay-Z seen that. And I think he got intimidated by the future ahead of him. Because let's be real, if we talk about how like much of a visionary Jay-Z is, I'm pretty sure he's saying like, hey, if this keeps going, it's no way we're gonna be able to stop this. So that's where you get death for auto-tune. And I think what's nasty about it is instead of trying to embrace it like you see Kanye or my favorite artist, Lil Wayne, or even Drake try to do, like and evolve as an artist, you try to nip it in the bud and stifle the growth. And that's why we talk about having another body. And trying to do that, you hold you hold T-Pain, and in reality, you started a whole campaign for the new generation that didn't need to be there because you was upset about who was running the shit now, and it wasn't you. New York was no longer the mecca of hip hop. Like obviously the mecca gonna always be the mecca, but let's talk about who's dominating shit now. That start transitioning to Atlanta. When they talk about the artists that was running shit, that started being more melodic and less lyrical, and that was also taken away from why people will value Jay-Z. So all these different things where I think in his mind, and he was seeing where it was going. And let's be real. He wasn't wrong about that. If we look down the trajectory of the branch that was spawned from T-Pain, and then we can even get to Wayne a little bit as well. Like he created a lot of different people. And to add the Wayne the concept into it, it's like not only was hip hop changing, you had a new artist that was willing to embrace it, that was probably too tough for you to even compete with. So that's where he talks about him trying to come on and compete with him on whatever song it was and trying to start a beef with him. And it's like trying to, once again, stifle Wayne, and you trying to make it seem like it's competitive, but it's really out of hate because you know you can't compete with him. And I'm like, what happened in 06 as well? Like this is right when Jay-Z come out of retirement, so happened to be Lil Wayne on fucking fire. And the landscape of hip hop and music is starting to change with the T-Pain and things like that coming around. So it's a lot of things that's going on where I'm thinking in my narrative here, Jay-Z knew he couldn't adapt. You get Wayne coming off of Carter 2, which is a amazing project. Hustler Music, Shooter, so many other records on there. And then he goes in straight into 06 with Birdman Like Father Like Son. And what was it? It was another, I think, The Drought something or something like that dropped in 06. So Wayne was going crazy. Then you go to, this is not the right, I don't know what that is. It's not the right thing. Then you get into what he did in 06 as well. Some other things he did in 06. Give Me That, Make It Rain, Holla at Me, Stun Like My Daddy, Leather So Soft, George's Bush, Cannon Remix. So Wayne was going crazy. And then 07, he starts to pick up auto-tune. You get We Taking Over, Duffel Bad Boys, I'm So Hood. And then you start to hear, maybe it was 08, he starts to auto-tune more. Lollipop, Millie, Mrs. Officer, Got Money. I think it says I'm Me down there. So like these different records is a part of just Wayne growth. And then some of those were some of like the examples of Wayne also using auto-tune. So you damn right, Jay-Z wasn't just talking to like when T-Pain mentioned like Jay-Z saying he wasn't just talking about him in that track, he was more talking about other artists. He was definitely talking about Wayne. But once again, that's more about hate and not understanding how hip-hop was evolving to a whole new era, and Wayne was willing to embrace it. And I think that's the difference in greatness. Instead of trying to be like, nah, man, I ain't using no crossover. I'm going to just keep using the post game. I don't, like, if you was a point guard, it's like, nigga, I don't got to worry about face-up dribbling. I'm just going to keep posting, like, at the three-point key, like, and shit like that. It's like, okay, well, you're never going to start in the NBA. Like, at a certain point, as the shit starts to evolve. So it's the difference between being stuck in your ways and trying to evolve into greatness. And we clearly see how that played out for Jay-Z. He couldn't keep up. He couldn't keep up. You go into other artists that started to adopt auto-tune, which I think, once again, Jay-Z was very understanding in that land, like how the landscape was changing. T-Pain, Kanye, Lil Wayne, like it's very clear, like, bro, you cannot keep up. You cannot keep up with that style of music. So all you can possibly do is try to stifle it and stunt the growth of that, or possibly like nip that whole branch off in itself. And the fact that Jay-Z potentially tried to commit subgenre genocide is not talked about enough. I'm just saying. He tried to imagine if Jay-Z succeeded as the OG trying to shit on the new generation. It was like, you know what? That's just not hip hop. Auto-tune is trash. And niggas really believed it. We wouldn't have got Future. We would have got a lesser version of Drake. We wouldn't have got Gunna. We wouldn't have got Travis. We would have got a lesser version of Kanye. Like, brother, just because Jay-Z wanted to be right and his music ain't been that great, nigga, stop. So talk about potential bodies in the backyard. Like, Jay-Z almost nipped a whole branch of greatness that had been around for forever. Because let's be real. There's a clip we're going to talk about with Akon and how I think it was in California Love or something, but they don't mention this. Cameo was like really great at using synths and things like that. That evolved into Dr. Dre's sound and hip hop and a lot of West Coast sounds. It just was like we're going to get into it later. It was more in the beats than the actual artist, but we've always liked experimental like shit in our music. As far as Black people, we like funky sounds. We like psychedelic sounds, which this is pretty much a part of like the branch of psychedelic music. If you go look up or talk to ChatGPT, I'll be short. Ask ChatGPT, how the fuck did we get from little not Yachty's, the Travis Scotts and the Playboy Cardis and Drakes and all that? Who helped evolve this branch in music? You're gonna go all the way back to Prince, Cameo, Sly and the Stone Family, Jimi Hendrix, like that. Like literally, I had a conversation where I broke this all down. Like for literally 3 weeks, I had a conversation trying to come up with videos. They were gonna be my first initial videos to this channel, but that was gonna be like hour-long videos, and I just wasn't. That's not how I'm not ready for that type of content yet. But like I did a whole breakdown of like different branches of hip hop or music in general, and where did they come from? From obviously hip hop, psychedelic hip hop, R&B, pop, and all these different things, and it was an amazing understanding from that. So with that just being said, like experimental music has always been ingrained and enlaced with like the Black community and us liking it, whether it was more of the party scene and people like living like fast lives and stuff like that. Regardless, there was always a lane for it. Nobody was crying and bitching when New York was running shit for 20, 30 years. Like, we embraced it. All of a sudden, when New York started losing the title, now we got to create a hate campaign that artists still to this day, I feel like, if we being honest, hasn't really got out of it from. If you wasn't the top niggas and you like playing with some of these experimental things like Gunna should be way hotter than he is. But I think you could possibly look back at Jay-Z, instead of embracing it, one of the biggest artists of all time, embracing this era, instead of, if he would have did that versus hating, how much these other new artists could have kept being past that torch and actually growing, where like it's the older generation is willing to embrace new generation, and how that could have kept through with it when that comes to media, like fan bases, like sales, radio, all that different things, and what we truly accept as the status quo, versus you got a bunch of old niggas sitting around hating on new shit, like, and how like niggas been having to fight an uphill battle, even Drake, and having to be different. Instead of like a nigga embracing him, they tried to shit on him, and how he had to low key, in spite of all that, still do these crazy numbers. Imagine if niggas really wasn't even on that type of Haitian, was embracing him how they embraced Jay-Z in his era. Brother, numbers probably been a million every time. But it's literally manufactured niggas where they gotta hate on him because he's not of what the previous coaches deem as relevant or what's right. Like, I think when you talk about death for auto-tune, there might be a possible ripple effect that still affects hip-hop to this day. And niggas not accepting hip-hop and what it is in this current era to this day. And that's a fact. Honestly, I think it's a fact. Like, I'm coming up with this, like, I'm kind of not coming my ass with it, but I'm spitballing, putting everything together, trying to put the pieces to the puzzle together, and it's still early in the puzzle, but I think I got a lot of good pieces. I think I got corner pieces, and I could build on it. So you go into the future where it's like, we got Drake in 2010 and 13. So you get from 06, 05 to 08, where T-Pain, Kanye, and Wayne was killing shit with the experimental shit. 9 and 10, they still killing shit. Then you get Drake that come pick this shit up and take it even to another level. But, you know, Drake and even the other artists that we talked about, Kanye and Wayne, they embraced the shit that Jay-Z did. It's just the fact they had so much other, like, that extra shit, that's what caused the hate and the ripple between that generation and the generation that was just before running shit, as far as, like, the New York niggas and the New York media that, like, just love that style of hip-hop. And then you get Future. Then you get Chief Keef. Then you get ASAP, Young Thug, Travis, Uzi, Quan, like, and so many other artists. Post Malone, Roddy Ricch, Gunna, Lil Baby, Don Toliver just dropped a great album this year. Yeet dropped a really good project this year for his standards. Drake dropped some good music last couple years, if you ask me. Polo G, niggas fuck with him. And like, so when you talk about where hip hop was going and where it went, Jay-Z almost killed the whole branch just based on he couldn't fit in no more. And that's not discussed enough to me. But that's why I'm here, because I got interesting perspectives. But we got a couple more videos that kind of speaks from the artist perspective that actually was dealing with it in real time. Where is it? Give me 1 second.
T-Pain on, it was a unique sound. You already had a unique sound.
Right.
So bringing T-Pain on, he created that, he made it more popular, the auto-tune, because the auto-tune was kind of like out, you know.
No, that was, the auto-tune was made for T-Pain.
For T-Pain.
That was the point.
Okay. But
Yes.
that sound, what's the guy that was on Tupac's California Love?
Right. So that sound, you had like Roger Troutman.
Right.
You know, after him, then you had Teddy Riley. You had it always being used with a piano, like, but it was like hip hop at that time, you had to be different.
Right.
And there was nobody remotely close to doing something like that in hip hop as an actual sound or a style. So when we took it and owned it, we ran with it.
Now, after that sound started collectively going through the industry, everybody started using it.
Right.
You get Jay-Z.
Right.
That for auto-tune.
Right.
How did that affect T-Pain?
T-Pain was deeply affected by it.
Okay.
Because he was a huge Jay-Z fan. So he couldn't understand why Jay-Z would diss him. Well, he felt like it was a diss. But I think Jay was just trying to bring the culture back to hip hop because the influence was so heavy to the point where you got.
The influence was so heavy where the landscape was changing so dramatically. People don't understand that, like, where even honestly, it wasn't really, because you still had Biggie with real player music, crazy sounding music. Like, then you get into 2000s, you got Eminem and stuff like that. It really was just New York trying to keep they torch for real. And obviously Biggie about New York, but it's like Biggie had music that transitioned past New York versus some of these other guys, like, they had to rely just on that, what New York niggas like type shit. Like they talk about it. Like, Jay-Z tried to emulate Biggie as much as he can, but he couldn't. Like, it was a recent thing. I can't play on here because it's all music, but like, it's maybe 30 different bites that Jay-Z had from maybe Biggie alone, or was it just different artists? So when you talk about what Jay-Z was really good at, like, was the New York style of lyricism first and stuff like that. And he did have elements that transitioned past that. He just wasn't as great at those elements as other artists. He wasn't as polished at that element as other artists, and that speaks to why he only has a certain amount of hits as far as top fives and those pretty much only being with other artists. You don't have solo hits like that where it's like just him like on a dominant level. Like he's not that level of polish when it comes to creativity, when it comes to that level of music. It's just different with Kanye. It's different with Wayne. It's different with Jay-Z. I mean, with Drake, or even I mentioned Jeezy because we just did a verses recently with that, and Jeezy did well, way better than most people expected because Jeezy was, I think, more polished when it came to making like good sounding music, like sonically. Not so much. It's always been better than him lyrically, and New York niggas and the niggas that couldn't evolve didn't like that. And they did their best along with Jay-Z trying to stifling that. And fan bases picked up on that. And I think as much as people talk about how 2024 changed the trajectory of how people view and behave as far as hip-hop fans, I think you probably could look at the same as how a lot of the OGs picked up, like OG fans of hip-hop picked up on Jay-Z's energy and one of the like hate campaigns that he tried to push. And how that sparked so much animosity towards all of the next artists that like spawned after 08. Like you can't tell me there's an artist post 2010 that doesn't get hate. Like it's tough versus hip hop back in the day. It's like even the South guys was getting hated on, but bro, they still was able to have their own lane. And I feel like the hate wasn't as hard as it is now. For whatever reason. But I do think 2009 Death of Auto-Tune helped spark a lot of that hate. Let's just be honest.
Honestly, I started to get tired of auto-tune, so I understood what he meant.
Right.
But I don't think Jay meant it in a way to where, you know, it was to destroy Payne's career. It was more to make way for Jay to come back in with some real hip-hop stuff. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I've been referencing to this whole time. It was more about Jay-Z trying to come back in and fit in. And he knew if he didn't have these declarations that he made before trying to drop these albums or trying to fit back in, it was going to be hard for him to compete because the other sounds that these guys are doing was just so much more entertaining and more appealing to the ear and more interesting to the ear, caused more curiosity and it just generated more replay value. Because you wasn't just relying on your lyrics. You was actually finding ways to make, like, even with auto-tune, like that's a part of it, but like where music just went different, like with just the beats and everything like that was a part of that too. Like auto-tune helped transition so much shit, bro. Like I don't think people possibly understand it, honestly. But honestly, I can say that like 3 times in a row. We got one more video and we wrapping it up. I forgot to switch the screen.
Fans are just gonna hear what they.
Death of Auto-Tunes came out. How'd that make you feel?
Sucked at first. Everybody wanted me to look more into it, but I'm like, nobody else is gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like the fans are just gonna hear what they hear real quick, and that's gonna ruin. And the thing is, here's the thing: if me and him was beefing or something, or if me and him had words or anything like that, I'd been like, this is fair. But I had never met the man, and then him and I talked it out. And it was cool. He was like, nah, just, I see people doing what you're doing. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But the way you did it, it was a quick ass thing. It wasn't like a long conversation. You know what I mean? People can say what they say or whatever, and they can try to explain it. But if somebody make a song called Basketball Players with Podcasts, it's whack as hell. You're like, then they come to you like, well, I wasn't talking about you. And it's like,
Death of
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to Jay-Z being fake. Y'all say he's too meticulous, he's too smart to be like, I wasn't talking about you, nigga. It don't matter if you're talking about me. You knew it was going to affect me and everybody else that came after, just because, once again, let's not act like he was stupid. He knew the trajectory was like changing. You could just look at the list of artists I gave you. If you couldn't see that hip-hop wasn't changing and you directly involved in hip-hop every day, you were fucking blind. So let's not act like Jay-Z was naive. He tried to get rid of a lot of niggas' platforms that they were using to become great, and he tried to knock the hustle, essentially. And just because Jay-Z cool, I ain't gonna lie to you, it looked nasty. Like people love to say he can't do no wrong, but that looked nasty. built a straight hate campaign. And last time I checked, being a hater was never cool. Never cool. Still ain't. So once again, that's another body for Jay-Z. You could add T-Pain and a potential genocide of a whole subgenre and generation of hip-hop that he would have potentially got rid of if he was successful, just in order for us to want to only listen to Jay-Z and his style of music. Lord have mercy, if I would have only had Pusha T post 2010 and niggas of that ilk. Like, brother, I mean, I get it. Jay Electron is great. Like, I get it. Kendrick is great. I get it. Like, but nigga, no. I'm not trying to listen to Anderson .Paak if he's a part of that branch. I don't know. But any of them niggas that, like, I get it. I'm not trying to say you're snooze fest niggas, but hey, you're close to it. Ain't no way I would have had a great time. I would have probably I would have just been reading books, listening to jazz. I'm telling you, I'd have been a pop nigga. We'd have been talking about pop every day on this channel and on my podcast. We wouldn't have been talking about rap. I'm telling you that now. If Jay-Z would have got rid of auto-tune and got rid of the subgenre that helped Drake be so great, that helped Kanye be so great, that helped Wayne be so great, and we just had to deal with niggas that was boom bap niggas, Lord have mercy. I couldn't have done it. But with that being said, I'm up out this thing. It's been fun. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. We almost ain't make it today. Had a lot going on today, but we dropped every day so far. We're going to continue that trend till 500, man. Peace.